powered by Reviting, streaming from the Reviting Digital Studio. It's the David Daily. Exploring frontier technology, artificial intelligence, quantum innovation, and the intersection of faith, funding, and the future. Here's your host, David Goki.
Welcome to a live episode of the David Daily Show. We're literally streaming to you live from New York City, home of the New York Knicks, NBA champions, and that's the power and beauty of going live stream is you can go live anywhere you have a camera, some good natural lighting like we have here, and of course, a good internet connection with a microphone. So I want to shout out to Headset Advisor, who sponsors this show with headset equipment. If you've not gotten a headset or you don't have a good microphone, go check out Headset Advisor. So we're literally here in the midst of the New York City. This guy wants to say what's up. We're live. Wow, okay.
Who's in here right now, make sure to show some love to
I love it.
We thought he was in the corporate What do you do?
All right, that's funny. All right. So anyways, we got a guest on the show today, Daniel Burrus. I'm excited for Daniel Burrus for many reasons. Daniel, first of all, is in San Diego, one of my favorite cities. And secondarily, Daniel is a futurist, and he's head of innovation, published 7 books, over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. Crazy, really good, incredible human being. Daniel, welcome to the live show. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's so great to be with you. And you are indeed live.
Yes, exactly. That's the beauty of live show. So why don't you just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and what you're focused on, and what does future innovation and future technologist even mean these days?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. I started out teaching biology and physics for a number of years. I had an idea for an airplane design. I built it, test flew it, ended up with 37 national locations in the first year, was profitable in the first year, started a number of companies. Within 2 years, I had 4 different companies doing really well, but I missed the teaching part. So I sold those businesses and started what I do today, many decades ago. And what I do is research global innovations in all areas of technology, AI, robotics, genetics, you name it. And I've written 7 New York Times selling books. I've given thousands of speeches around the world. I think my biggest audience last year was 10,000. I have learning systems. And basically what I'm doing is helping people to see how to solve impossible problems, see invisible opportunities, and understand how amazingly predictable the future is. And if you're an entrepreneur, that is really powerful, because when you have uncertainty, it's hard to know what to do. But when you can balance that with certainty, which we'll talk about in here, all of a sudden you have the confidence to make bold moves and can grow rapidly.
Yeah, I love that. What an incredible statement. It is truly an honor and a blessing to have you on our 60th episode just this year. And that's the power of going live, is that you can produce episodes with high quality people just like yourself, Daniel. So we're going to get right into the first topic. People who are tuning in for the first time, we have a very simple format. We talk about funding, faith, and future. So let's get right into funding.
Time to talk about funding.
All right, I'm right here on Wall Street, and funding and investing with hard trends, not assumptions. So we are living in a crazy time when it comes to investments. SpaceX just went public, and in one day, Elon Musk acquired who even knows, billions and billions of dollars. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, all of their life net worth in one day. SpaceX went $2.5 trillion in just 2 days, Friday and Monday, and now it's Thursday. So when you're looking at hard trends, or people are saying, hey, Anthropic's going to come IPO, or maybe there's a new IPO that we're going to see more trillion-dollar IPOs. Elon Musk is the first trillionaire, of course. So what advice would you have for people who are wanting to get in on the action, but not follow necessarily the assumptions of the market and stay faithful to their investment goals?
Well, Warren Buffett over the decades have made a lot of money by when you're all buying, he's selling, and when you're all selling, he's buying. He's found that opposites work better because we are driven by emotion. And when we talked about Musk and being perhaps the world's first trillionaire, most of us don't even realize what $1 trillion is. To put it in perspective very quickly, 1 million seconds from now is a couple of days. 1 billion seconds from now is 1993. 1 trillion seconds from now is the Ice Age. So we're talking a trillion is a lot bigger than a billion. It is quite something. So when you're looking at the future, you've got to be able to separate those things that may happen from those things that will happen. And I've, over the decades, come up with a methodology I'll teach you all right now very quickly, and that is all trends are either a hard trend based on a future fact that absolutely will happen, or it's a soft trend based on an assumption that might happen. And we tend to think that the only thing that you can be certain about is death and taxes. But yet, will AI get more powerful every year? Hard trend, yes. In the United States, there are 10,000 people turning 70 years old every day. Are they going to get chronologically younger? No, they're going to get older. That's a hard trend. So when you start realizing there are hundreds of hard trends, that gives you the certainty and the confidence to make a bold move. So let me give you a quick example of investing, since we're talking about money and so on. Let's talk about, I mentioned 10,000 people in the United States turning 70 every day, a hard trend. So a lot of people love to go boating. They love to go fishing. But as they get 80 and into their 90s, it's kind of hard to launch the boat. So what if we created the easy launch trailer for seniors, designed it really well? Would we have a growing market every year? Well, yeah, we got an aging population, 10,000 people turning 70 every day. They have a growing market. You could take those numbers to the bank. Would we know which countries to export it to? Yes, we know the aging populations. In other words, there's a low-risk way to develop a high-return investment, or if you're an entrepreneur, a new product. So the point I'm getting at is when you're looking at certainty and hard trends, you have the confidence to make bold moves and you can innovate very quickly without having to use Wall Street so much. A quick example, I've started 6 companies over the years. 5 were profitable in the first year, 4 were national leaders in the first year. Never had a business loan, never had investors. What I used was hard trends and used that to make, let's call it bets, but kind of like in a casino, you already know the answer to the bet because a hard trend will happen. So let me let you ask me some questions about hard trends versus soft trends. By the way, I love soft trends. What do I love about a soft trend? If you don't like it, you can change it. So
Yeah,
AI is a hard trend. It's getting more powerful every day. Will it end up taking over all the jobs? Soft trend, that is an if or a maybe. It may not. You know? And basically, I can tell you the future of AI very quickly. Let me give you let me give you an example of it very quickly. Yeah, seriously. Right now, AI knows more about oncology, the study of cancer, than any oncologist. It's absorbed every cancer treatment, every MRI, everything that's ever been done globally. AI's got that in its AI brain. No human, no matter how well educated, can keep that all in their head. So if you know somebody that has cancer, heaven forbid, I'm going to give you one of 3 choices. Number 1, a really good oncologist. Number 2, just AI. Number 3, a really good oncologist that has access to AI. Bingo, there's the future. AI is about augmenting humans rather than replacing them. And I've done a study of companies that have replaced humans with AI. Many of them are starting to hire those humans back. Turns out we need those people. Why? Because the future is all about relationships. We live in a human world, and relationships that are good are all based on trust. And when you only have AI and not a human, trust can get eroded.
Yeah, I love that, Daniel. I want to say that I am fully aligned with you. And in fact, I want to cite Dr. Gretchen Huizinga, who wrote a PhD paper out of the University of Washington. And what Dr. Gretchen Huizinga said was very simply, divine intelligence supersedes that of human intelligence. And because humans made the machines, therefore human intelligence supersedes that of the machines. Now, you may disagree with that. You may agree with it, but a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Jew, a Christian, a Catholic, a Muslim, and an agnostic and atheist came together as a committee to approve this finding. So I'm exactly with you that hard trends are here to stay. If you're looking every day and you're seeing that the data says that a hard trend means that everyone's turning 70, 10,000 people a day, that's a lot of people. That's 1/10 of the Michigan Stadium in Michigan, right? And Michigan's got a big stadium. So secondarily, we also, in addition to that, people are reinventing themselves in the 70s. Why? Because they're living to 80s, 90s, even plus 100. And with longevity, with biotechnology now, and with health consciousness and wellness, we're seeing people live longer than they've ever lived before, which is absolutely incredible. So I'm curious, when someone sees a hard trend, especially say either in the markets or you're seeing a hard trend like poor people are transferring their wealth every day, these 10,000 70-year-olds have children and grandchildren, they want to transfer their wealth. What would you say to the Main Street person who wants to get in on this movement, the hard trend?
Yeah, very good. Well, first of all, there are some categories of hard trends to make it very simple for you. Technology is a category of hard trends. For example, we went from 3G wireless to 4G wireless to 5G wireless. Is that it? Now we're going to have 6G followed by 7. So in other words, if you look at the exponential growth of technology, which has been going on for a long time, 2 before 4 becomes 8, rather than just a linear path, you can actually see the growth of all these technologies and how fast they're accelerating. So again, technology is a category of hard trends. Demographics is a category of hard trends, and you can extrapolate all sorts of opportunities. So there's 2 things I want you all to understand. All trends are either a hard trend or a soft trend, number 1. And secondly, a trend by itself is boring. Who cares? Until you attach an opportunity to it. When you attach an opportunity to it, it bursts into actionable life. Let me give you an example of a trend and see whether you think it's hard or soft, because let's start learning about it a little bit here. In the United States, we have had an increase in healthcare costs that have been going up, 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 up for decades, going up for decades. Now, is that a hard trend or is that a soft trend? Think in your mind for a second, is it hard or is it soft? It's been going on for over a decade. Most people would say, oh, it must be a hard trend. It's been going on for decades. But in reality, now, remember, if it's a soft trend, it can be changed. You could change it. For example, you didn't know that an aspirin in a hospital costs $20. If you knew that, you would have had your spouse bring it. You didn't know that that artificial knee you're having put in because you played so much tennis can vary in price by over 100%. Why? Because you didn't know the price. We don't have any transparency. What if we put all of that on a blockchain, which is highly secure and transparent? Now you'd see what that artificial knee really cost. Now you'd see what that aspirin really cost. And by the way, costs would come down. My point is, the beauty of a soft trend is if you don't like it, you can change it. And the rising cost of healthcare costs is a soft trend, and there are ways of changing it. If you think it's a hard trend, then you don't even try. That's why understanding hard and soft is important. All right? Technology and AI will get more powerful every year. Will you use it to increase your productivity? That's soft. I don't know. You may not use it. That's up to you. All right.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of focusing on a soft trend, especially if you know that the hard trend data is giving you like a soft trend in the moment. And by the way, we are live here in New York City. We have the parade going on right here behind me, which is incredible. And that's the beauty of live streaming, is that you can get deep into the midst of these trends, which live streaming is actually a trend. In fact, it's a $100 billion industry right now, growing 25% year over year. Compounded annual growth rate is 25%. So whenever I see a $1 billion industry, and to your point, thank you for showing us the magnitude of the $1 trillion. People don't realize that there actually is an order of magnitude of a step function. We're talking about math here, We're talking about when you jump into the beach and you see 1,000,000,000,000 pieces of sand. It's one thing to say, hey, let's go to, light years before, but it's one thing to say, let's go to the cold, dark ages. That is 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago. I love that perspective. Okay, so we're going to jump right into faith. We have a faith topic as well on this show. I want to get into faith. We have some faith and belief concepts. We have a good spirituality audience here. So let's jump into the faith topic next.
Focusing on faith for a moment.
Faith, leadership, conviction for human-centered AI. Faith is a belief, right? It's a belief in something that you cannot see, right? And it's an evidence of the unknown. For example, wind. We have faith in wind because we cannot see the wind, but we have evidence of its movements. So I'd like to ask my guest, Daniel, what does faith mean to you? And then we'll jump right into our topic. What does faith mean to you?
Well, first of all, if you look at all of the different religions, and religion is different than faith, religion is the practice of a faith. And if you look at all the different religions, and I've done that over back in my 20s and 30s, you'll see that really they're all kind of talking about the same thing, but they have different rules. They've all come up with different elements to it. By the way, that's people's interpretation, right? But faith is, as you said, the belief in something that you can't actually prove. However, you mentioned the wind. I can see the wind. I like to sail. I can see the wind on the water. I can see the wind blowing the trees. So even though the wind is invisible, I can see the effects of it. And you can see the effects of faith on people all over the planet, right? In every culture. You can see it just like you can see the wind. You can't actually define it, but you can see the impact of it and the power of it. So
that's a great point. I really love that. I really love that point, especially because look, this right here is a crowd of people who are winning. They love to win. And when you have a faith perspective and you're actually winning, that is actually the beauty of it, right? And I really like that. I want to get more into this topic though about faith because look, in a market like today, it's easy to be driven by profits, but leadership, I think, expounds beyond profit. And even as we see, maybe 100,000 people just on the street and maybe millions, we're not seeing billions in the streets. We're not seeing trillions, right? We're not seeing that, right? Like these are the guys on the street that make it happen, right? Hey, Nick, say hello, say what's up, just say hello. So anyways, I want to stay focused. Leadership conviction for human-centered AI. What does that mean to you?
Well, right now, we've got most companies are doing an AI-first approach to AI. In other words, we need to use these tools. We need to use them to be more productive, and we'll save a lot of money, especially if we can lay people off. That's the AI-first approach. Actually, I've got a new book that I'm working on right now. It'll be out later this year. It's called The Human-First Approach to AI. And because we live in a human world. See, we live in a technological world, but we live in a human world. And by the way, it's all based on relationships. And relationships are all based on trust. And trust are based on values, honesty, integrity, delivering on promises. So the key is you don't want to lose trust, because if you don't have trust, you don't have a good relationship. So what we want to do is to elevate trust whenever possible. That's why
exactly right.
Whenever you're using AI, remember, it can make things up. And people say, I don't like AI because it can make things up. It can lie. It can hallucinate. And my response to that is, I got news for you. So can humans. So the key is you need to verify the results. Whatever you're doing, you got to
trust but verify
your results. Because if you're just saying something you read on the internet to somebody and they find out it wasn't true, my trust in you has gone down. And you don't want trust in you to go down. We live in a human world. You want to maintain your trust, verify. It's about critical thinking. We believe things that we agree with, but maybe that wasn't true just because we agree with it. You need to verify. That's where social media can get us into trouble, because we get into echo chambers of the people that agree with us on our topics, agree with us on everything that we think. And yeah, I like people that agree with me, but is it true? We need to start verifying more so that we can elevate trust. because without trust, society falls apart.
Yeah, Daniel, that is such an incredible opinion and perspective. I am 1000% aligned with you, especially because Stephen Covey said it best, right? We move at the speed of trust, and trust inside of an organization can mean a lot of things. Sorry for the noise. We're here in New York City in the parade celebrating the New York Knicks. That's the beauty of going live. Here we are live. This is behind me, literally the parade. And the speed of trust is important because trust takes time, right? I really appreciate what Warren Buffett said. He said, it will take you 25 years, right? 25 years to build a reputation, but maybe 25 seconds to ruin it. So when you talk about reputation and trust in the context of faith, how do you maintain the tenacity that's needed to really build a future of trust? And, when that decision point comes, not take that 25 seconds to ruin your reputation. Daniel, having published 7 books, being a renowned speaker, over 3,000 keynotes you reminded me of in the pre-show, how would you continue to maintain trust so that your reputation doesn't go in 25 seconds?
Well, it's a really good one. And by the way, it takes a long time to get trust back if you lose it. So that means I have to double and triple check anything I'm going to be sharing with people to make sure it's accurate, because I want people to be able to trust me. And I've written thousands of articles. That's one of the reasons I've got over 1 million followers on LinkedIn, is because I share a lot, but I'm sharing things that I've double checked, things that I've verified to make sure that people can trust me. And if I'm using AI at all, if I'm writing something, what I'll do is say, and by the way, here's what AI said, and I'll indent it so that people know this is me versus this is AI, because I want people to be able to trust when they're reading something from me. I'm the one that wrote it. I'm the one that created it. So I think, all of that is extremely important. One other thing about trust and verification and all of that is that from a company perspective, let me put it this way. I've started 6 companies over the years, and I said earlier, 5 were profitable in the first year, 4 were national leaders in the US in the first year. Here's what I did from day one. Whenever we hired somebody, we said there's going to be a time when you will be having to make a decision and you can't check with me first. How can you make a decision? And it may involve money, it may involve big things. How can you make that decision? And my answer was, if you do what someone with the highest levels of honesty and integrity would do, you're doing the right thing. Even if it causes me to lose money in the short term, I'm not about the short term, I'm about the long term. And if you're acting with high levels of honesty and integrity, your long term will be good. Well, I've been in this particular business for 40 years, been growing.
Wow.
For 40 years. I've been growing like crazy on a global level.
You don't even look like you're 30.
Well, thank you, but I've been growing like
that?
Crazy all of this time, and
right.
And it's because, look, honesty and integrity. It's about values. It's about humanness.
Yeah, you know what? It's a lost art, Daniel, genuinely. And I posted this on LinkedIn. I'm pretty vulnerable. I made a 5-figure mistake this week. And maybe if you're watching, you've made a big mistake. And look, immediately, as soon as I figured that out, we have a little financial product. And if you haven't gotten a Grab wallet, you need to get your Grab wallet, which is really beautiful new technology. But I made this little mistake, and the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I saw, whoa, the feed is blowing up, and I made this mistake. Immediately, I owned the mistake. I reached out to all of my friends, my colleagues, my CEO, my CFO, and my chairman, and together we solved it at the same time. And it wasn't a nefarious situation. It wasn't a hack. It was literally a genuine mistake. I failed, and I'm okay with saying that. But how many people do you know who aren't willing to say that because they need to preserve PR or because they need to be, in some sort of view? So, hey, what's up, Mark? We got Mark Cosby in the chat, longtime fan here. Hello, Daniel, from our days working with you at Sprint. I love that. I was also a Sprint fan. That's cool.
Your picture there, Mark. Yeah, I remember that. All that work with Sprint. Thanks. I'm glad you're in there. And let me address problems real quickly.
First
of all,
let's hear it.
When you make a mistake, one of the things I've been sharing for actually decades is to learn how to fail fast so that you can learn faster. The key is, what did you learn from the mistake? And a lot of times we make a mistake, but we don't learn from it. And we should be concentrating on what are we learning from that mistake? Because listen to this. Your most important lessons in life, I'm talking to you now that's watching the show. Your most important lessons in life, did they come from your successes? No, they didn't. They came from your mistakes. So a mistake is a blessing if you learn from it so that you can move forward faster. All right, so there's a little take on mistakes. One other little example. It's an old example, but a really good one because you mentioned PR. There was a CEO of Chrysler named Lee Iacocca a long time ago, probably before a lot of people even were around if you're young. But he was caught with a problem, big PR problem. Turned out the news found out that that Chrysler was selling new cars, but they were used by executives and the miles were rolled back. So they were selling them as new cars, but the executives used them and rolled the miles back. It hit the press. It was going crazy. And Iacocca did something really important. Here's what he said. I checked on it. That's absolutely correct. It was a mistake. We should have never done it. We will never do it again. And you know what happened? It vanished from the press. It was a non-issue because he owned it and he said it'll never happen again.
That's so good, Daniel.
Perfect example of how to deal with it. Honesty is what I want to hear. Just tell me. Years ago, IBM had a product out, new software, and everybody was hating how it was working, and it was all in the press, and IBM was denying that there was a problem. Well, when you know it's a problem and they're denying it, do you trust them more? No, you trust them less. They should have just said, hey, look, we're IBM. It's a problem. We'll get it fixed. Don't worry about it. If they would have said that, bingo, it would have gone away.
Yeah, I totally agree. When you take ownership and you're responsible, right? And you say, hey, look, I made a mistake. You become more relatable with the people, right? You don't want to be elevated on some pedestal because when you do that, you separate yourself from a moral and ethical point of view. And I've given a couple of talks of keynote speeches on AI ethics and morals. And the big thing that we care about in AI ethics and morals is that you integrate the world's religions, the holy scriptures, the faith aspect of it into the way that you build technology. And in fact, this is a great time for a little shout out to AI and Faith, which is an organization that brings the world's religions together to define what we need in AI ethics, morals, and governance. So I really appreciate that perspective. When you lean in with a practical example, IBM made a mistake, they owned it, and then the press came out, and now it's a non-issue. So I want to get into the future because you are a future technologist.
Let me jump in.
Go ahead.
A quick one on all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Look, in a way, because I've given speeches in over 50 countries, all right? And the way I look at it is, hey, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet Earth. We're all brothers and sisters on this planet Earth. If we could think that way, all of a sudden, instead of all those people walking behind you, being, I don't know if these are weird people or who's there, but if we realize, hey, we're all connected, there is the conscious mind. With AI, they're talking a lot about, does it have consciousness? There's consciousness. There's our subconscious mind, which I use a lot. Yeah, if I'm giving a speech the next morning, I'll be really thinking about what I'm trying to do the night before so that when I'm sleeping, my subconscious mind works on it. When I wake up in the morning, I have all these great ideas. Why? Because I was using my subconscious. And there's one other, the superconscious mind. And that's where through you can connect with everyone on the planet. It takes a little practice to do that, a little meditation, but you can do that as well. The point I'm trying to make here is that, hey, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet. And what we need is to love a little more and hate a little less, and you'll find we'll have a much better world.
Yeah, I really like that perspective, especially when you put love at the center of it. And when we put love at the center of it, when we say, for example, God is love, no matter who you believe God is. And if you're watching this for a second, in your quiet time in the morning, just say, God, who are you? And God will reveal himself to you. And I use that terminology and language very specifically because God will be with you. And so this is what happens when you go live. Hey, we're live. All right, let's go next. All right, next in 5. So when you have a belief, this is an example of faith. This is an example of faith, of a belief system, right? Doesn't matter. The system, the energy moves at the speed of trust. It is really beautiful. But anyways, we want to get into future topics. Let's roll the future topics now.
Let's talk about quantum and the future of technology.
That was absolutely wonderful. I love the beauty of going live. So on our future segment, we like to talk about future technologies like quantum. I heard space, I heard nuclear, I heard biotech, the future of technology. And so preparing for quantum technology is really a big shift, right? We have this idea that you and I could exist in the same space. We could teleport, we have entanglement, quantum entanglement, all these concepts. But there's so much more than that. In fact, SpaceX has committed to 1 million humans on Mars and 1 trillion in revenue by the next 30 years. So how does the average person watching this, maybe they're in a corporate job, or maybe they started a side hustle, or maybe they're actually a big CEO and they're on Wall Street. How do we prepare for quantum and these exponential, like these massive exponential shifts that are coming?
Well, there are a lot of elements and a lot of ways of looking at quantum. From a technology standpoint, there's a hardware element to it and a software element to it. And the hardware has been slower to develop over time, although lately there have been some really big breakthroughs. And we already have, for example, Amazon and IBM offering quantum as a service. In other words, I don't have to own the quantum computer. I can use theirs as a service, just like you have IT as a service, or your CRM as a service, and so on. So quantum actually can be a service. So we have the hardware part, but you also have the software part. And because quantum is so powerful, it can break any, let's say, any protections you have right now on everything, including your bank account and everything, because quantum is so much more powerful than other computers. So here's what's going on. While the quantum computer, the hardware, is being developed and getting closer to being out there, making all other computers obsolete, which we're heading towards, hard trend, they're developing the software to run it ahead of time, because that's easier to do, to make sure that when the quantum hardware is to that point of rendering everything else obsolete, we have the software to run it so that we aren't vulnerable, so that we can take advantage of it. When I say we, I'm talking about humans. Otherwise, our banking system is in trouble. Our Social Security in the US is in trouble. Everything is in trouble. So we're developing the software, quantum software, ahead of the hardware, so that when the hardware is to that point, we aren't in trouble. If we weren't doing that, we'd have the hardware all of a sudden at this point, and it's like, uh-oh, now we're in trouble, and it would take time to develop the software. So I'm just letting you know there's that element to it, and it is getting very, very ripe for application.
Yes. Yeah, I like that perspective of like separating the hardware and the software, especially as we think about quantum and the future of quantum. Now, Microsoft came out with a version 2 of their quantum chip. Of course, NVIDIA, which was, the first $1 trillion company, they of course have quantum stacks, quantum racks. Apple, of course, has quantum chips soon to be embedded into their technology. Tim Cook stepped down, for example. Tim Cook stepped down, and we have a new hardware CEO. So I'm very excited to see what Apple's going to do in 2026 to build that hardware. But to your point, it moves at the speed of trust. We can have a lot of hardware, we can have a lot of software, but if we don't have trust, we don't have integrity, that's going to be a problem. And we have over 100 big data center projects that are currently going on. Now, while I was at Microsoft, which I was there for 10 years, data scientist, we scaled Microsoft from 9 billion to 43 billion, which that's going to be a very small number here soon. But when you're working on an $800 billion valuation, a market cap, 43 billion, that's a pretty significant percentage. But we wrote a paper, a very futuristic paper. Maybe you will appreciate this as a future technologist yourself, where in the future, we believe that warehouses and these massive football field, mile-long data centers will be an archaeological, historical artifact. We will no longer need the large data centers that we're producing today. Why? Because power will get more efficient, energy will get more efficient, and storage, of course, will get more efficient. We'll have more local, on the edge AI technologies, biotech, etc. So, as a futurist, in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see technology really moving forward, and how can we prepare for that exponential shift?
Well, let's give you a news scoop right now on this show. Let me talk about something that is not being addressed by anyone, but it's something I would call a blinding flash of the future obvious once you start thinking about it. We're building all of these AI data centers all over the place. And but what is NVIDIA doing? Are they sitting still? No, they got their new chip that's much better than the one you just put in your data center. In other words, all the chips in your data center that you just built are going to be obsolete. When? Maybe a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, we're spending billions of dollars on data centers that are going to be only have a couple of year lifespan. Then we need all new chips. And by the way, what are they going to do with the old chips? We're going to take them out of those data centers and put new chips in? Or are we just going to build more new data centers and close down those obsolete ones and let them be empty hulks? What are we going to do with all those things? So the news flash that nobody is talking about is the rapid obsolescence of the data centers we're currently building right now. What are we going to do with all those things? And are we just going to be building more and more to where we don't have any places for homes anymore? All we're going to have is a world full of data centers, and hopefully the humans will find a place to live. It gets to be a little weird if you think about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, what I would say is when it comes to data centers, I believe the data, again, if we look at Murphy's Law, if we look at the ability for space and storage to double every 6 months, what that means is that data centers will, in my opinion, as a futurist, become obsolete. And here's why. Because we will no longer need all of that space and all of that storage. We'll start to see 10 terabytes, 20 terabytes, 100 terabytes on your phone, and you'll be able to quickly drop that to the cloud or to backup and storage via quantum technologies. So we won't need the space or the storage. And I just spoke recently with a robotics company that is looking at how to more effectively use SSDs. Now, what they've been able to do with storage is bypass the CPU and the GPU. They're only storage related, which is a really incredible concept. I'm not the chemist, biologist, physicist, but that is a beautiful space to think about. How do we grow in a world where we no longer need that? Also, I see a quote here. Q-Day is misleading because people assume we need quantum hardware. I recently posted my recent quantum simulator, breaking RSA without pre-computer. No cheating. People tend to ignore me though, and this happens to be my 7th account because I threatened the hardware hegemony. I am with you on that without pre-compute. Yes. So there's a world where in quantum, all we need to do is literally physically exist. And once we physically exist with entanglement and other quantum concepts, we can then, for the 5th grader, we can teleport where I go from my classroom to the cafeteria without having to do much more than think. Now, that is a world that we have not yet expressed, but with 1 million people on Mars, it's going to be quite interesting to see how we bypass even the rocketry systems and the physics of the natural world, and we really lean into that supernatural space. So tell me a little bit about more space and a little bit more about nuclear, and what are some of your thoughts about the future of space and nuclear combined?
Well, first of all, let's look at we've had in the past 1 or 2 energy solutions. And of course, the word past is very important here, because what we did in the past is rapidly become obsolete compared to what we can do today, much less in the next year or 2 or 3 or 5. And that's where I think instead of reacting to change, what I've done is developed what I call the anticipatory business model. That's why my last book was called The Anticipatory Organization versus the Reactionary Organization. Actually, the book before that was called Flash Foresight instead of calling it Flash Hindsight. Frankly, I think we've got hindsight down. I think we got reacting quick and agility down pretty well. We need to be more anticipatory, looking out a little further. That's what we are talking about in this show. And that is, I can't just look at the present and assume the future is just more of the present. No, the present is becoming rapidly obsolete as we
That's
are
right.
defining what is going on. That's why I'm worried about, again, the data centers and the obsolescence of the chips and the hardware, and the whole way to think about it is where, there's another technology, there are many, and that is synthetic biology. And that whole world of synthetic biology is creating another new gigantic revolution around what we can do with quantum, what we can do with nuclear, what we can do with energy, what we can do with biology, what we can do with plants. It's amazing. So if those people watching the show, if you wanted to get a look at what are the core 25 technologies, AI is just one, that is shaping the future, you could go to 25techtrends.com and you could download a free resource and get a look at what all of those 25 are, and take a look at those and think about not just the present state, but the future state of those. And you'll begin to see more of the future. Just like if you wanted to know what are the best AI tools to use today, if you're looking at today, I've used over 1,500 AI tools. Many of them are not very good, by the way. And I have a report that is free that shows you what the top 5 are in a whole bunch of different categories with use cases and case studies. By the way, that is the AIstrategyreport.com. You could download that for free. So I have a lot of free resources if you want to find out more about these things. But as you were implying, David, there's a lot more to the future than just the AI or just quantum or just nuclear.
Right.
There's a lot going on right now. Better to step back and look at the big picture so you can get a better view of where we're going.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm here with a lot of, like, let's just call it people on the street, right? And we have hundreds of thousands of people that are flowing through the streets. You met some of them today on the live show. So practically speaking, because our show is very practical, Daniel, in terms of practicality, what would you recommend to someone who's thinking about getting into a future technology? Like, what are some practical first steps that maybe someone who has a little bit of technology skills or a little bit of AI, a little bit of application, how does one get started in this space?
Well, the first thing I would advise all of us to do, because again, the methodology that I'm giving you to be more anticipatory and less reactionary, is all trends are either a hard trend based on a future fact that will happen, or a soft trend based on an assumption that may or may not happen. And the advantage of a hard trend is you can see disruption before it disrupts, giving you a choice to be the disruptor or the disrupted. A soft trend, if you don't like it, you can change it. So both have advantages. So here's what I'd like you to all think of doing. Make a list of the things you are certain about, your hard trends. Think of technology. Think of demographics. Even think of regulations. Actually, you mentioned Elon Musk earlier. Every company Elon Musk started was funded by a regulation, because the governments, all governments, they don't create businesses. What they do is they have something they want to see happen, and then they create a funding source to make that happen. For example, years ago, the government wanted e-patient medical records to happen. So they created a multi-billion-dollar fund for any company that creates e-patient records. And a lot of companies saw that, took advantage of it, and today are billion-dollar companies. So regulation is, believe it or not, a funding source. You should be looking at that if you're an entrepreneur. So what I'd like you to do is create a list of hard trends that you know will happen and related opportunities for you. A list of soft trends that may or may not happen, and the opportunity to take advantage of it, to shape it, to influence it in a positive direction. because a big list of things I'm uncertain about doesn't empower me. But when I have things that I am certain about, I have the confidence to make bold moves. And you can innovate with low risk. And you mentioned in the beginning of this segment funding. It's amazing what you can do and how rapidly you can grow a business when it's based on a future facts uncertainty. So go back, make your list of things that you are absolutely certain about from a technology standpoint, from a demographic standpoint, with a related opportunity. Take a regulatory, take a look at that. Even shifting regulations have opportunities. And then take a look at the soft trends, those things that are based on assumptions that may or may not happen. I didn't say they wouldn't, but an assumption is different than a future fact. And then you'll get a list of opportunities. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Boil it down to one or two that you will take action on. Why? Because the risk is not taking action on it if you know it's going to happen. And you'll find a way to put, let's say, bright lights on your future. You know, when I was in high school, before I got my driver's license, there was a kid down the street that was older than I was. He had a hot rod that he had built. And he asked me if I wanted to go out one night and take a ride with him to try something new that he had. And of course, I was like, yeah, sure, of course. So I went out with him in this dark night, and he had his bright lights on. Then he turned on his new bright lights. You know what they were? Aircraft landing lights. Whoa, we could see much farther out into the future. What do hard trends do? It turns on the bright lights. It lets you see much farther into the future. I want you all to be doing that.
Yeah, wow. I absolutely love that for so many reasons. First of all, you don't know this about me, Daniel, but my dad actually is an aeronautical engineer, aerospace technology. He built jets for Learjet in the 80s. Wow. And I always had this like, okay, maybe my father's not all that, but then I was like, Dad, you're a rocket scientist. He's like, yeah, no, it was jet propulsion. I'm like, same thing, same difference. But you're exactly right. And I look at my adventure spirit and I think, all right, I have big lights on my adventure vehicle. And you're exactly right. When I'm going through the woods, through the mountains, I see things that people cannot see. And in fact, my brother who has an RS6, he turned on night mode. And at night mode, guess what? He can go down and he can see a deer in light mode.
New York City in the building. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're talking about New York. You look good. New York. All right, we got a lot of New York fans out here going live.
Sorry. In advance.
Hey, you good? You good? Hey, here's. I'm Dave.
All right, David's got to go for a minute to try to get control. But the key here is that you can actively shape the future rather than passively receive it. I don't want you to be a passive receiver. I want you to be an active shaper of the future. A lot of people have a wait and see attitude. Well, let's wait and see what's going to happen. Well, you can wait and see yourself right out of business. Instead, what I'd like you to do is to, instead of have a protect and defend the status quo, I want you to have an embrace and extend. Embrace the new tools that are shaping the future and extend their reach. Back when the iPhone was first launched, Research in Motion was the leader with the BlackBerry. And of course, the BlackBerry was not a transformational device. It was a change device. It allowed you to do your emails and your calendar using a mobile device. And that was really good. The iPhone came along, which was a transformational device that lets you do videos and all kinds of things. There's a video I saw of the CEO of Research in Motion when he saw the first iPhone. And here was his reaction. Why would anyone want to watch a video on a little screen like that? Now, what did he say? He was in a protect and defend mode, protecting and defending his BlackBerry, his product. By the way, at that time, they had the most secure international wireless network on the planet. If he wouldn't have been in a protect and defend mode, protect and defend his current status quo, his product, and he would have seen the future when he looked at that iPhone and seen, wow, this is revolutionary. We could beat Apple right now if we integrated those things. He could have won. He could have won, but he didn't. So let's not have a protect and defend, let's have an embrace and extend mindset as we look to the future. One of the resources I can give you while David is out there trying to get control of the crowd is on Burrus, BURRUS.com. I have a lot of free resources you can download. I'm not trying to sell you something now. I've written thousands of articles that are there. You can search them by subject. I've got lots of resources. I've got an award-winning learning system. If you were going to buy one of my books, I would say get Anticipatory Organization, get that first. I think that's a good place to start. And because I want you to be less reactionary and more anticipatory. And
I love that.
And I see David is back. Okay, you control the crowd.
Yeah, I want to say practical tips. Like, Daniel, I really appreciate you saying, hey, let's look at hard trends. First of all, you know that 70-year-olds are retiring every day. Data shows us that. Secondly, get involved in a faith and an integrity movement for that trend. And then third, as you think about the future, offer a service or a product that can serve those people who are in that hard trend. And it's guaranteed that you'll be successful. You'll publish your book, you'll be New York bestseller, you'll do the thing, you'll travel, you'll put $100 million in your account, because at the end of the day, 100 million will be very low. Maybe just a couple 100,000 if you're like just very humble. So look, really appreciate this time that we've had together. And I want to jump into our final segment called Behind the Bag. It's an anchor segment, and Beyond the Bag is beautiful. Let's roll the film.
Beyond the bag, beyond the bag, beyond the bag.
As we close, what a wonderful conversation. So many incredible wisdom words. What is in your bag, Daniel? We want to know what is beyond your bag. What do you carry with you everywhere you travel?
Well, as you might guess, of course, I have a smartphone, as you might guess. I've got a laptop because I fly a lot. In other words, how many miles have I flown over the decades, giving speeches and consulting? Remember, I said I've been in over 50 countries, and the answer is 6 million miles. By the way, let's get a perspective here. It's only 250,000 to the moon. So I have done a lot of travel. What do I do up there? Just sit around? No. That's where I write books. That's where I write articles. That's where I do a lot of thinking and composing. In other words, it's an office where I'm not interrupted. So we can turn something that's negative, like being in a plane, into something that's positive. And this is something that I can use to be productive. So I would say a computer is probably my key element, because that's where I can do writing. And again, I've written over 1,000 articles. So
can you show us your computer out of your bag? Just pull out your computer or whatever it is next to your bag. We want to see it. Oh, look at that. Ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, that is very clean. That is an Apple MacBook. If anyone has seen this, this is an advertisement for Apple MacBooks. So I actually have my bag with me today. And what I wanted to pull out of it actually is a single chopstick. So because I believe in the ability to grow and scale, I have a chopstick. Now people would say, David, why do you have a chopstick? Literally a single chopstick. So this single chopstick gives me a lot of things. First of all, it is a hair tie. Ladies, if you need a hair tie, you can put this in your hair. Second of all, it is a microphone holder, so I can hold it as a microphone. And third of all, if you find a dangerous, anyways, you get the point. But having a chopstick here is what I carry in my bag wherever I go. And because when I'm eating on the streets, I love to eat with chopsticks. And that is my Beyond the Bag. All right, we're about to close this segment. So Daniel, people are going crazy on the streets. They want to stay connected with you. I've been telling literally hundreds of people here, Daniel Burrus, San Diego, go follow him. And I've been giving them my card, and there are literally, you can still see hundreds of people just like walking down the streets, literally millions, maybe even 10 million people have come into the city from all the 5 boroughs of New York City. So if people want to stay connected with you, Daniel, what is the best way for them to reach you directly? Just like you and I have had this conversation, how do people stay connected with you? And finally, who do you serve and how do you really help them, Daniel?
All right, well, thank you. First of all, going to Burrus, BURRUS.com is a way to get a portal to a lot of things that I do. picking up a copy of Anticipatory Organization would be great. My book, latest book. If you, I gave you a couple of free reports that you could download without a cost. And of course, on LinkedIn, I've got over 1 million followers because I share a lot of good stuff. That's why so many are followers to join the conversation. Daniel Burrus on LinkedIn. And my, what am I really trying to do? I'll tell you, my goal is to get as many people on planet Earth to be far more anticipatory and far less reactionary, actively shaping a better future for themselves and for others, rather than passively receiving the future as it comes on a daily basis. We can create a better future for all. Let's do it.
I love that. Daniel, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Wow, 1 million followers on LinkedIn. I am all in on LinkedIn. I am a huge fan of yours, and I would just say, like, definitely a groupie. So, real quick as we close, how did you get to 1 million in followers? For people who want to know, like, how do you increase followers? And maybe furthermore, how do you also increase conversion of those followers on social media, specifically LinkedIn?
Well, the key is number one, when you're posting on LinkedIn, however you're doing it, be focused on what you're trying to give them. In other words, if you're trying to, we're all experts on many things. And if we're just throwing stuff out there, you're not going to get very far. You got to know who you're serving and what you're trying to do. As I said, I'm trying to get as many people on planet Earth to be more anticipatory and less reactionary. Okay, good. I've got a litmus test. I know what I'm trying to do. Help people anticipate, help people to see technology and understand the hard trends of it, help people to understand hard versus soft and so on. So having a focus is really important. Secondly, if you're looking for leads, think of it as fishing. You, for example, I've had one post where I've had over 500,000 people read and respond to it. Whoa, it's huge. I had another one where I had 5. And I had a friend of mine who saw that and he said to me, Dan, I noticed you only had 5 people read that post. And I said, I know, it was a huge success. And he said, what do you mean? It was only 5. Well, one of them was a CEO of a Fortune 3 company and read that post and responded and had me come in to do a whole bunch of consulting for them. In other words, you're fishing, you throw out a lure, you see what you can catch. And what is the lure? Really great information that they need to hear that will really help them. Give people what will really help them and stay focused. And all of a sudden, you'll have a lot of followers.
Wow, I really appreciate that. And Daniel, in real fashion, you have been an incredible guest on the David Daly Show. Daniel Burrus, folks, go follow him. Go to burrus.com, and he's got 7 New York City bestsellers. I'm a huge fan of Daniel, and you should be too. In fact, if you're not following him, get into his ecosystem. You will be successful. Follow the hard trends. That's really the key takeaway from today's episode is follow the hard trends. If you know that the New York Knicks are going to win, put yourself in New York, right? If you know that AI is the future, invest in teaching yourself artificial intelligence. And finally, if you see a hard trend that you're observing, post it in the comments. We want to celebrate your hard trends. And of course, bring a faith component to it, right? Integrity, ethics, morals, that's so important. Make good decisions as a faith founder or an investor. And then finally, as a futurist, be thinking 10 years out. Build contracts, agreements that are 10 years out, that are long-term, so that you're not stuck in the Wall Street grind of profits every month, profits every quarter. You have to cut staff. No, think 10 years out. Anyways, David Goki here with the David Daly Show. Big shout out to Reviting.com, who behind the scenes are producing this, and my team at AI and Faith, who just believe in me and support all that we do. Look, we go live every week. This is celebrating 60 episodes in just 5 months. Let's go, team. Let's go. Let's go out. Roll the outro.